Welcome to the Acoustics Podcast. This is Brian Mitchell, your host and founder of ecoustics.com. Today we're talking about spatial and immersive audio with Dr. Hyunkook Lee, a full professor of audio engineering at the University of Huddersfield and the founder-director of the Applied Psychoacoustics Lab known as APL. Dr. Lee has made significant contributions to the perception, recording, and reproduction of 3D audio. His innovative research has driven both academic advancements and practical applications in the audio industry, such as APL Virtuoso and Shoep's HRTF 3D. He serves as the vice chair of the High Resolution Audio Technical Committee and is a former governor of the Audio Engineering Society. Wow. Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to join you today.
Happy listening from our sponsor, SVS. Acclaimed for punching well above their class, experience thrilling and immersive sound from SVS speakers, subwoofers, and cables at an affordable price. Join the sound revolution today. Visit svsound.com.
We are honored to have you, and I guess let's just start off by tell us how you got to this position. How did you start studying this? Why did you start it? And kind of get us up to maybe the current place in where we are.
Yeah, sure. I started as a recording engineer back in 1996, and I was an assistant engineer at a studio whilst I was attending a university in Korea, but it was nothing to do with audio. But then I kind of decided to actually pursue a proper study in sound. So I came over to the UK. I studied at the Tonmeister course at the University of Huddersfield. So I basically studied music and sound recording together. So both artistic and engineering side of things. And that was my first degree. And I got into this acoustic recording using microphone array techniques. I did my internship at Aspen Music Festival in Colorado. And I also worked for Metropolis Studios in London. And so basically, my background is in sound recording, mixing, and mastering at the time. But then I got into research when I was on a final year at the university. And then I started kind of getting more into, trying to find out how our perceptual mechanism works, how we localize sounds, how we perceive spatial impression in a concert hall and in sound recording and reproduction. So I did my PhD there at Surrey until 2006. And then I went back to South Korea, where I'm from. And and then I worked for LG Electronics. I was working on the audio codec development and standardization, as well as developing sound effects for LG mobile phones at the time. So it was a bit of different thing that I was still using my sound engineering skills and things like that. And then I realized I really want to go back to academia and then pursue an academic career. And so I was fortunate enough to find a job at Huddersfield in UK. So I came back in 2010. Ever since then, I've been here for 15 years now. And I established my lab APL in 2013. And so, we have more than 15 members of the lab, so including staff members, researchers, and students doing PhDs and master's degrees. We are working on all things about spatial audio, basically. Not just the spatial audio, but mainly we're focusing on spatial audio, binaural audio, virtual acoustics. So we cover all aspects of audio, basically how we perceive sounds and what's the mechanism, what are the parameters that create certain type of sounds, how to improve sound quality, how to measure it. Since around 2016, we started working on virtual acoustic simulation, rendering of acoustic cues for binaural audio. So at the time, VR, AR was a big thing. Still is a big thing. We realized there needs to be new research and development into audio for VR and AR. So, when you wear headsets, you see all these things around you. It's all 3D. But if the sound is not 3D, it's just half the experience. So I realized, audio plays a really important role in the sense of like providing the sense of realism and, immersion and things like that. So we started developing our own technologies to render virtual audio, binaural audio, and 360 capture techniques and rendering techniques. And 3 years ago, no, actually 2 years ago, we released our first software product, Virtuoso, which is a binaural renderer that simulates Dolby Atmos loudspeaker setup and a listening room. So you can actually just wear headphones and experience wonderful immersive audio anywhere you are, basically. And that's what I've been doing.
So it sounds like the software is the most recent advancement that you've been able to get out to the public. And is this consumer-ready software that anyone can download or buy?
Yes, you can purchase it from our website. It's PC-based, Mac or Windows PC-based. So you can install either the standalone app or plugins. If you're a sound engineer, you'd be using a DAW, digital audio workstation like Pro Tools or Logic, then you can insert this plugin and then just listen to anything coming out of your computer as if you're listening to loudspeakers in a well-treated room.
Right.
Even if you're wearing headphones, it doesn't sound like it's stuck inside your head. It's like externalized. So you can actually have more realistic and comfortable listening experience. And that's what.
So is your software doing something on top of what Dolby Atmos has already encoded? Like if you're playing from Apple Music, what is different?
So good question, actually. Dolby Atmos has got their own binaural renderer, and Apple also applies their own binaural rendering algorithm for Apple Spatial Audio. So the main difference is that Dolby binaural renderer doesn't necessarily try to represent your or someone else's studio environment. So it does sound very different to what you actually hear in your mixing studio or mastering studio. So often, this is actually one of the current issues in immersive audio industry, because a lot of sound engineers have to monitor in various formats, because what they hear in their wonderful mix studios with the proper loudspeakers around them, it sounds the same in Dolby binaural rendering. Because the way it works, it follows some different philosophy, I guess. But Apple Spatial Audio basically decodes a multi-channel stream. So basically, they use a codec called Dolby Digital Plus Joint Object Coding. So DD plus JOC is the codec they use. So basically, you receive this audio stream, and then your device decodes it into 12 channels of audio signals, and then Apple applies their own binaural rendering. It's mainly because they're utilizing their head tracking, with the AirPods, and you can do head tracking with. So for that, you need to process these signals separately. You cannot use the binaural stream from Dolby because that doesn't allow you to do head tracking. So these two are already quite different, Dolby and Apple, but then they never sound the same as what you actually hear in a more realistic environment and, in well-treated listening room with a good speakers. So Virtuoso is kind of filling the gap there. It's a missing sort of link, because for sound engineers, they really need to monitor everything in the highest fidelity. Then often tonality becomes an issue because it gets uncolored when you apply filtering like HRTF and all. It just basically becomes sound a little bit thin and colored. But then also if you're in a bad sounding room, then you don't get really benefit from the the expensive speakers you have. This
Right.
room basically makes it sound wrong. So we're trying to solve this issue basically. So we provide very natural sounding virtual room. So it's like a virtual room tuning. You can do a lot more in the virtual space. So like you have a perfect listening room without any nasty colorations. But then it feels more natural because you're hearing a little bit of room reflections and reverb. In a nice listening room, you always have certain level of ambience. So we add that. And then also we use very carefully tuned HRTFs, head-related transfer function, to make it sound natural to your ears. And then we also provide a lot of headphone equalization and filters. You can customize the filters to your needs. You can save them as a file and then reload them. And
Okay.
we also offer head tracking and room customization. And there are a lot of psychological and psychoacoustic aspects to binaural perception. It's not just about filtering technology. It's a lot more than that. So that's what we've been researching into in psychoacoustics. We try to figure out what really makes binaural audio sound more natural and more realistic. So
is that the goal with immersive audio? I mean, we have the terms immersive, spatial, 3D. Then we also have Dolby Atmos and Sony 360 and MPEG-H and DTS-X, and the consumer hears all these things.
It's really confusing.
It's confusing. So let's go back a little bit and just start off with, what does stereo do really well, and why is taking to the next step so difficult?
Well, I mean, I've got my own definition of immersion. First of all, immersion is not. Sometimes the term is confusing because immersion, you can maybe think it as a technology, like immersive technology, but mostly we refer to immersive experience. And so when some product is marketed as immersive audio, then people get high expectation. Oh, is it going to make it sound more immersive? Then you listen to it, and often people think, the Dolby Atmos binaural they listen to on a mobile phone from streaming services. Yeah, there are people saying this a lot these days. Oh, I just prefer stereo. I mean, and it doesn't sound as spatial as I expected, and then it sounds a little bit thinner. And so, but then it's sad to me because once you experience the ultimate immersive spatial audio with a proper speaker system in a really nice listening room, you cannot go back. It's so good. You're already spoiled, and it's so good. And now sound engineers catching up. I mean, they've been honing their skills to mix in immersive formats for the last 4 or 5 years. Now, the early ones, they were not very good, They were still on mixes and sort of fake on mixes. And but then nowadays there are so many great immersive mixes. And but then the problem is we cannot really enjoy them as they should be, you cannot really have all these speakers at home. That's not practical. Then, if you have a really good stereo mix, then maybe some old recordings, really good 70s, 80s recordings, they should stay in stereo because that's how the content was produced originally, And then some people are trying to kind of mix them to immersive format, and often that doesn't work musically as well as technically. Then stereo, if it is really well produced stereo material, then it will sound really good in binaural if it was sort of provided in proper room simulation and with a proper HRTF rendering. Then it will sound almost like you're listening to a really linear and full sounding loudspeakers in a perfectly treated listening room. That you can have that kind of illusion. And then that gives a sense of like physical presence. You feel like, I'm listening to it in a virtual space. Of course, it becomes more realistic when you see the speakers in front of you, because we are biased heavily by the visual cues, and there is also the cognitive aspect, like the room acoustics of the room you are physically in should be roughly simulated in binaural as well, because if the binaural plays really dry anechoic room like binaural sound and you're in a natural sounding room, the sense of externalization, we call it like externalization, out of head localization, it never occurs. It doesn't sound realistic. So it's important for the listener to be able to adjust the binaural settings to your current room. I mean, of course, if the room doesn't sound good, then you don't want to simulate that, but still, you don't have to replicate everything. Like in Virtuoso, it's already kind of fine-tuned acoustically, so it gives you all the necessary cues that you need for realistic binaural experience. So it could actually sound better than your own room. Actually, it does in my own small study at home. It's a terrible sounding room, but when I listen to Virtuoso, and it feels like I'm hearing a lot better sounding speakers in a better sounding room, but it feels really realistic. So I don't need physical speakers in my room. It's quite ironic. In my lab, I've got 24 speakers surrounding me, but I can actually kind of take them with me wherever I go and then optimize the experience. So I'm sorry.
No, it's good. There was a couple terms in there I wanted to clarify. When you reference binaural audio, what do you mean that's different than immersive audio? What are you delineating there?
Okay. Yeah. So terminology needs to be made clear first. Yeah, I totally understand, because binaural audio is nothing to do with immersive. In terms of my definition, immersive experience is about presence and like cognitive absorption and involvement and things like that. But when we say spatial audio, we sometimes think like there are many speakers and all that kind of stuff. But then stereo is still spatial audio for me, because we're still talking about level and time difference between two channels, and you're creating a sense of width, sense of location, sense of depth. You can actually make it sound really 3D in stereo. That's a spatial audio for me. But if you have 5.1, then you have more opportunity, you have more dimensions you can play with. So you can render the distance and depth better, because the rear speakers give you that. But then the center channel gives you the anchor. But now we have Dolby Atmos with 7 speakers around you and then 4 height channels. And then you can now render height images. You can actually fly things around, and you can make the recordings sound more like you're in an actual concert hall with all the reverb coming from above and below. So
you said something interesting. I want to cut you off. Sorry.
Sure. No
You said stereo can be spatial audio. I want to get back to that. Can you explain that a little further? Because I don't think people quite understand that.
Okay. So for me, the number of channels, of course, if it is just one single speaker, we cannot really call it spatial audio, because you can only have one point. But if you have 2 speakers, then you can have left, right, width, and you can also render depth by adding some reverb and and then there's a way to actually render height as well. In fact, we actually perceive height with the stereo as well, with the center in the middle. It always sounds a bit more elevated. So that I call it spatial, because we are rendering spatial cues like level difference, time difference, decorrelation between channels. That's spatial audio for me. But 5.1 and Dolby Atmos or 24 channels or whatever, ambisonics, they're all spatial audio, but with the higher dimensions. I mean, more dimensions. That's all. So stereo is, for me, is like a one-dimensional spatial audio. 5.1 is 2-dimensional spatial audio. And Dolby Atmos is 3-dimensional spatial audio, because we have width, depth, and height.
So let me take it into more of a live performance
Mm.
situation.
Yeah.
You're in a concert hall. That is not defined necessarily as spatial audio, but you are in a space
It's
and
a spatial sound. It's not
it's spatial
audio.
sound,
Yeah,
right?
audio implies signals, like
Mm,
electronics and electrics. Yeah. So, but then if you're in a console hall, that's a spatial experience, spatial sound experience, right? Auditory experience. So we are trying to deliver that kind of experience in spatial audio. Yeah.
So is part of your software trying to put you in different spaces like that?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
So I
So,
mean, Virtuoso is actually a part of our sort of big framework. I mean, Aspen is our technology
right.
that can render any space, like a concert hall, church, a cathedral, and a
Okay.
bathroom, whatever. But Virtuoso was developed specifically for simulating nice-sounding listening rooms, like critical listening rooms or mixing studios, home cinema, living room, and dub stages and things like that. So yeah, they are supposed to simulate smaller spaces, but we do have technology to simulate any kind of spaces. That's actually another product we are aiming to release next year. Yeah.
Okay. And that's this new product is going to help you simulate more spaces. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, well, any spaces you can actually customize. You can make it sound more like a church. You can make it sound like a cathedral, and
Okay.
and that's more for production purposes. So you can, place the sound images anywhere you want, and you can use it in a like art installation as well as just listening for your tracks or whatever. Yeah, so that's all possible through geometric acoustic simulation technologies, and there are a lot of different algorithms out there. But our expertise is on the perceptual optimization. So, whilst you're simulating a certain space, you want to make it sound good as well. Because
Right.
I always say that if you replicate your bathroom sound 100% correctly, that's a complete digital twin, but then you're not going to listen to your music in that kind of environment, but you still want to make it sound good. Also feel like you're in a certain space. That's more about the topic of plausibility, we say. That's much more important than 100% replication of the real world, because real
Right.
world can be boring, and it can
Right.
be optimized, enhanced in the virtual world.
Right. You certainly don't want to reproduce the sound of your bathroom. But the consumers, if they've had an AV receiver over the last 10, 15 years, have had settings like stadium and jazz and things like that. And those generally haven't been very good.
That's a gimmicky thing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not what we are doing. It's okay. So this is actually some kind of misconception, right? All this AV receiver. Yeah, okay. You can put some reverb, you can reflections, and make it sound like you're listening to in a concert hall. Yeah, but they all sound colored, and you're not really in. It's like a room within a room kind of dilemma. Inception dilemma, we actually call it. Like you have this lovely recording made in a concert hall. You have all the reflections and reverb from the hall.
Right.
But then when you play that in a small room, then you have all the reflections coming from the actual room that disturb the original acoustic information in the recording.
Right.
But we cannot really get rid of all the reflections in the room. It's more about how we treat the room to make it sound good, how to translate the original recording in a physical space. But then if you add some artificial reflections and reverb on top of that, then you basically make it a lot worse than what it should be. So that's really like a gimmicky kind of effect thing. But what we're aiming here is not effect. We're trying to provide a realistic sense of being in a good sounding room. So it's all sort of perceptually, sort of virtually treated. So like when you're doing room treatment, I see the absorption panels behind you.
Yeah.
So those panels are useful for like absorbing some nasty early reflections and make it sound more,
Right.
like genuine. So we have the expertise in sort of tuning the virtual space, so it
Right.
can sound tonally sound very authentic and with high fidelity, whilst keeping the spaciousness of the room. So when you're in a good sounding listening room, you have certain level of reflections and reverb. Any room like standard listening room has got reverb time of about 0.2 to 3 seconds, but then if you look at the spec, they all look like, oh, this is a really well treated room, but all these rooms sound very different. If you go there, the same reverb time, but some rooms sound less than optimal. Some other rooms sound much better. So what are the factors to determine these perceived quality? That is basically what we are focusing on. Yeah.
So it sounds like one part of this, you have to take the room out of the equation and you can get one set of immersion. Then when you add a room in, you have to compensate for that room's reverberation and change whatever algorithm set it. Am I on track? Am I off?
So this is actually there's no one way of achieving what you want, but if you are playing, it's like, if you take out the room out of the equation, then it's like you're in an anechoic chamber where there's no reflection at all, and then you play a lovely Dolby Atmos concert hall recording, let's say, and it's gonna sound very weird.
Right.
It's a very unnatural experience. Nobody wants to listen to music in an anechoic chamber. I've been in there many times in our lab.
Yeah,
we have
I've tried it too.
chamber.
It's very disorienting to hear any.
It's weird. I mean, nobody wants, but a lot of binaural sounds are like that because they don't consider room in binaural simulation. They just use anechoic HRTF filters, so it makes it sound like you're in an anechoic chamber. But it's more cognitive thing, really. Like I said, if you're in a small room with your speakers and the acoustics of the room, and your brain adapts to that really quickly, as soon as you walk into a new room and somebody's saying something to you, then your brain is expecting to hear that kind of acoustic pattern in binaural. So distance perception doesn't work in anechoic chamber. And you listen to like some anechoic binaural recording in your headphones, and then you are in a very reverberant room. This sound is never going to be sounding from where it was. I mean, where you expect it to be. It will sound like somewhere here. But when the room in binaural and the actual room match, doesn't have to be complete match, but sort of in the level where the plausibility is high enough, then you hear sound really coming from the actual positions. So that's why some expensive gears like Smith Realizer, when you measure your own ear responses with microphones in your own room, and then you switch between speakers and headphones, and you cannot tell which one is which. I mean, the headphone sounds are completely like speaker sound. That only happens in that room. So now you take the same HRTF, same filters, and then you move to a drier room or larger room. The same illusion is not going to occur. So that's how the auditory mechanism works. It's
so it sounds like you're saying right now to get the ultimate immersive experience, you need to have your room measured, you need to have your ears measured, you need to have the music recorded with particular microphones, then it has to be mixed in a certain way. There's so many steps, and then even with that, there seems to be infinite space that sound can be moved around. Or different sounds. So
yes or no? I mean, it's not that complicated. I mean, actually, we're trying to streamline this a little bit because, again, binaural is difficult. A lot of people struggle in binaural, but one of the things is, because the HRTFs are anechoic, there's no room simulation and there is no head tracking. Because, we perceive sounds and everything in our life by moving. We turn our heads naturally, even micro movement, resolve all the front and back confusion and up-down confusion. But when you're head locked, something like front sound doesn't make sense. You don't really hear it where it is exactly. It can be front or back. But as soon as you start moving, everything makes sense. Especially, if you can physically move around, that is even better. In VR, yes, this is a much better experience. But so what I'm saying is, you don't necessarily have to measure your own HRTFs as long as you can actually have head tracking in binaural audio. Then it's much easier to localize where things are, how far it is. And of course, there's nothing better than your own HRTF. That's kind of your oral fingerprint.
Right.
It's like wearing shoes that fit you perfectly. But then sometimes, that kind of accuracy is not needed if other cues are provided, like movement and head tracking and room information. There are a lot of research papers suggested that room are actually potentially more important than the accurate HRTF rendering. And some research also suggests that people prefer other people's HRTFs. They prefer, they can localize sounds very well with other people's. And then your brain adapts to new HRTFs. So like
just briefly explain HRTFs to people that haven't heard that term before.
Great. Yeah. So HRTF stands for head-related transfer function. It's basically frequency response, but that looks very complex, especially at high frequencies above 5K. That's because our external ear, pinna, this looks very complex. So for sound coming from different directions, they get distorted in different ways spectrally. So like sound coming from this direction has got these peaks and notches. So the sound coming from behind or above will have different shape in the frequency response. So brain basically learns all these patterns as we grow up. But we also may be born with this ability, maybe there is a built-in ability, but we also learn all these patterns. It's like machine learning. You get trained with a lot of data. And then when you listen to some sound, then we know because the patterns match it. Okay, so sound coming from there distorts the spectrum like this way. Then, that's the sound coming from 30 degree elevated. And, so that's HRTF. That's basically frequency representation of what we call head-related impulse response. So if you put microphones inside your ears and then take an impulse response, that becomes head-related impulse responses. And then you do FFT, you do frequency analysis of that. That is your HRTFs.
Okay. Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong on this. Have we calculated or has the industry advanced that there's calculations how to get every spatial sound from 360 degrees? They know exactly what the millisecond and the whatever from like every point in space. Is that accurate?
There are a lot of databases of HRTFs. So a lot of labs, it's been like 30, 40 years, since people have really been looking into the HRTF thing. But then only nowadays there is a lot of interest in binaural audio. So there is even like a service where you can get your head measured. I mean, Dolby provides that kind of technology. Apple and some, other companies do this phone scan-based HRTF modeling. So by using AI photogrammetry sort of modeling, you can kind of estimate what the frequency responses will look like depending on each position. So and also there are a lot of databases that measure like even 8,000 something points around your head. But that kind of measurement can be only done in a lab with a special facility. So so
without the HRTF data, the music that we can listen to now, Dolby Atmos, is that just doing like a general interpolation that's supposed to apply to everybody, or am I talking about two different things?
Dolby and Apple, they use HRTFs basically. Anything binaural has to be something to do with HRTFs. They either, if it is direct binaural recording, you have a dummy head microphone like Neumann KU100, and you can record everything in binaural. So all the cues, the HRTFs and everything are embedded in well, it's actually encoded in the signals, two signals. It's got all the HRTF information included. But then if you have like stereo or Dolby Atmos multi-channel signals, then we basically do something called binaural rendering, binaural synthesis. So we filter the original audio signal with HRTFs or the positions that you want to represent. So like if it is Dolby Atmos, you have sounds coming from left to center right, rear left to rear right, side left to side right. So we have all these filters for these positions, and then we do filtering basically. And then we simulate the impression of listening to real speakers.
So the HRTF, that only really applies to headphones, I believe. It doesn't.
Yes, of course.
It doesn't apply to speakers.
No,
to a speaker setup.
There are technologies called crosstalk cancellation based, so you can actually make binaural audio work over speakers, but you need a very spatial sort of speaker array and spatial like soundbar and spatial technology. So yeah, it's ideal to enjoy it with the headphones with the head tracking. So that's what.
So it seems to me that the industry has one term for spatial audio, but there's a speaker array way to listen, and then there's the headphone way. They're using the same technology to do both, but maybe that is part of the. I don't want to say problem, but what's holding perfect spatial audio from just being here right now? Like, what's that?
So first constraint is that most people don't have all the speakers around, and then they don't have all the nice rooms to benefit from spatial audio. But most people listen to headphones and earphones. So now binaural, binaural is the key for really moving immersive audio into the mainstream, I believe. But then,
when you say binaural, do you mean headphones, just regular headphones? Is that what you mean?
Binaural audio, so like spatial audio content encoded in binaural format. So like using Dolby Atmos binaural or whatever, Virtuoso can turn normal stereo or any multi-channel audio into a two-channel binaural format. So that's what this tool does. So basically, you feed Apple Music on a Mac. You can play Dolby Atmos 12 channels Dolby Atmos track from Apple Music app, and then you can route the signals into Virtuoso, and then Virtuoso renders the signals into binaural audio. So now you can just listen to headphones and then listen to a proper Dolby Atmos with the head tracking as well. If you have headphones like Maxwell or separate head trackers.
The Maxwells here for people that haven't seen them. These are $329. They're called gaming headphones, but they're really much more advanced. I think they're the only ones that do Dolby Atmos HRTF rendering, which is another surprise to me.
Actually, Maxwell doesn't do the HRTF rendering. It has the the head tracking ready. So basically it has IMU. So inside the headphones, it can also detect your head movement. So that information is fed into a binaural renderer. So we collaborated with the ODZ so that in Virtuoso, you can select ODZ Maxwell, then it just works right away. So you can move your head with the headphones on, and that information, the movement information is going into the Virtuoso, and it does all the HRTF rendering. So that's how it works.
I got you. So
sorry, go on.
So I know this is your software right now. You've developed it, I believe. Am I
Yeah, we as a team.
And
Yeah.
is this something we could see kind of built into a iPhone or a Mac? Like, why? It seems like there's a lot of steps right now to make all this work.
Yeah, that's in our plan. I mean, again, we developed this mainly for professional audio engineers or any audio engineers who are doing mixing over headphones. Because, some
Okay.
people just work in their bedroom, wearing headphones. But that was the original motivation. But we saw a lot of audiophiles and headphone listeners starting to use our software just to kind of enjoy not just the Atmos, but stereo music. You can just play Spotify or anything through our app, and you can hear it more like speakers. So we have a plan to reach out to the wider audience, basically, because this experience is so good. It's even just listening to stereo music and watching Netflix on, it just feels like it's more comfortable, it's more natural and more immersive, I would say. So basically,
are you saying you could watch Netflix on your computer with the software and run it
Apple
through
TV,
this, and you're going to get an even more immersive Dolby Atmos mix through headphones?
Definitely. I mean, even like a Zoom call or anything like online meetings, I use Virtuoso to just externalize sounds, or because the sound you hear is always inside the head. It's quite tiring if you're in a long online meeting, but now you can actually place the sound outside the head. And like when I watch Netflix on my computer screen, it's like about 1 meter away, and I can actually hear the sound coming from my monitor screen, not the headphones, and that is much more comfortable and natural. So unfortunately, at the moment it's PC and Mac based, but we have a plan to implement a mobile app in the future.
And how much can people buy it for now?
Now, we've been on sale, actually, Black Friday sale, but then we're going to start Christmas sales, But the original price for the standalone version is $149. We are on sale right now, but the plugin is $199 and bundle is $299, both of them. But probably most audiophiles and headphone music listeners can get a standalone version and just download these virtual audio drivers. There are free ones you can use, and you can connect them. Connect your music app or any computer audio, just Google Chrome or whatever. Anything coming out of your computer can be fed into this app using the virtual audio driver. Yeah.
And I believe you said they work with any headphones. You don't need the Maxwell. The Maxwells will give you the HRTF enhancement.
Head tracking, Maxwell gives you head tracking. But you can use any headphones. Yeah, you don't need any special headphones, just because all the processing is done on the app. So good thing about, everyone has got their preferred headphones, but then they also might want to equalize the headphones to make it work better for binaural. So we have 100 models built in the software. So you can select your model and you can equalize it to make it sound flatter. But if you don't find your model, then you can go to this famous Auto EQ database where you can find a lot of headphones. They're all measured and they have filters and text profiles and EQ profiles are all there. So you can simply grab that, load it into Virtuoso, and also you can customize it as you like. Yeah.
So when you say that, are you mapping the sonic characteristics of the headphone to the output of what I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, the Dolby renderer is sending? Is there like a mismatch? You're trying to get the levels. Maybe you can explain that better.
You could do that, yes. But I mean, it's all about sort of, target sort of like response that you want. It's all very subjective as well. So like, the famous Harman target it's a really good sounding curve, but, some other people actually like different curves and, there's no really any single like target that satisfies everyone. So there needs to be some sort of customization made possible.
Right.
So that's what this tool provides, because straight Dolby binaural you'll hear from Tidal or Amazon Music, it is just a single setting, and sometimes it sounds like anechoic, like a very dry binaural. So people usually can't tell between anechoic binaural and stereo because they sound so similar. But original stereo sounds fuller and more high fidelity. But that's there's a lot of variables involved in.
Well, it sounds like anyone that cares about spatial audio, or even audiophiles that just want to experience a better listening experience, should try out your software. And it seems like it's going to do magic. Like it seems like everyone needs it. It should be built into all of the listening tools that we have now, and hopefully your company can be the one that drives that. Are there competitors doing the same thing? Or
there are several companies that produce binaural renderers, plugins, and but as I said before, we differentiate ourselves because we are researchers. We do fundamental research into psychoacoustics, binaural perception, what kind of parameters are really important for making it sound good, but also computationally efficient, and that's also a really important thing. So I think that's our strength, and we got some other things in our basket, so we will keep developing new tools. And we really want to bring this experience to normal audience with mobile apps, and even like hardware headphone amplifiers. We actually discussing some collaborations with the hardware manufacturers, so we can embed this into some hardware devices, so it can be easier to set up, hopefully.
Well, I'm very excited and very optimistic about spatial audio. I know we're running up against time right now. I could talk to you for hours and hours on this subject, and we hope to have you back on a different episode. But I do want to thank you for your time today. This has been a fascinating discussion. I want to dive deeper into your software. I haven't had a long opportunity to give it a listen, but look for that on the Acoustics website. Hopefully you'll see a review of that coming soon. And thank you, Dr. Lee, for your time.
Thank you so much, Brian. Yeah, it was a pleasure to meet you and have a chat with you. Anytime, I'm happy to. I can also talk about spatial audio hours and days. So I hope we can meet again.
Definitely. Well, this has been an Ecoustics podcast. We hope you like, subscribe, comment wherever you are listening, and we'll see you next time.
Great. Thank you, Brian.